and it's time for my talk. And today I know I'm going to bring up a subject that many would not agree with. I am saying death wish and not mental illness is connected to mass murders. And Tran and the Monteery Park shootings will be a case in point. What a relief when it was ascertained that those killings at the California dance hall was not motivated by Asian people. Both the perpetrator and the victims were Asians. Tran, for me, did not fit the profile. He was 72 years old, and most mass killers are middle-aged or hot-headed, impetuous young men. But if it was not racially motivated, what was the motivation? Like other mass killers, Tran had no diagnosed mental illness. Only 5% of all mass killings could be attributed to mental illness. This according to Dr. Curzies, an expert on mental illness at Columbia College. Mass killings, he contends, are committed by people with a history of legal problems, people who are fighting to cope with severe life stresses, emptiness, pessimism, anger, and a desire for notoriety. At Tran's age, I doubt he had a hunger for notoriety. Dr. Curtis, in his descriptions, zeroed in on people who are undergoing severe pressures and problems in their lives, and they are abandoned by support systems, or who have psychological pain. Perhaps this described Mr. Tran. Dr. Curtis included in his description people who are undergoing severe pressures of life, people who are abandoned by support systems, or who are in psychological pain. Perhaps this described Mr. Tran. Mr. Tran was a frequent visitor to that Monteery dance studio as of 5 years ago. It is reported by a friend that he made there that Tran often clashed with the people there, and that he was nursing grievances that lasted for years. Clearly, his presence at the dance studio brought him pain. He was not able to fit in, and that is a problem. Perhaps over time, this escalated for Mr. Tran into feelings of hopelessness, despair, self-hating, and feelings of rejection by his peers. Just equally suggestive is that perceptions of himself as being wronged triggered feelings of pessimism and anger, resulting in brewings and broodings of what turned out to be mass murder. Mentally, 90% of mass school shootings target their own school, according to Peterson and Densley as they spoke to the Politico. The obvious similarity explains the insider as opposed to outsider dynamic of this particular mass murder of his fellow Asians at the studio. Another argument of similar weighting is that older adult mass killers attack at their workplace. The studio was similar to a workplace for Tran, and even often taught dance lessons there. Also, as profiled by columnist David Brooks of the New York Times, mass killers tend to be loners. A former neighbor of Mr. Tran's described him as someone who largely kept to himself. Tran thus fitted the profile of a mass killer. Mass killers sometimes had experienced early childhood trauma. We do not know if this was a fact with Mr. Tran, for he was born in Vietnam, emigrated to the United States in the 1980s, and became a naturalized citizen in 1990 or 1991, according to the New York Times. As a result, we have no access to such knowledge. It is also suggested that perpetrators of such crimes could have been exposed to extreme bullying. Was Mr. Tran bullied? It was reported that on January 7th and January 9th, Tran reported to the Hemet police station that his family was trying to poison him and they planned to steal his money. Perhaps he felt bullied by his family and abandoned and betrayed by this, his primary support system. Also, having cause to report these incidents to the police may have constituted for Tran the beginnings of a history of legal problems, and that is a typical trigger for mass murderers. What triggered the reporting to the police may have also caused Tran psychological pain. Real or imagined, his perception was his reality. Probably in assessing himself as not having the resources to deal with the pain, he snapped. How can we explain the killing of so many of his peers? They all patronize the same dance studio and they're about the same age, 60s plus, 62, 63, 70, 72, and so on. It does provide a unique opportunity for people, inclusive of the 72-year-old Trans, to learn from each other and give support and encouragement to each other. At this juncture of their lives, what would have been an invaluable place of joy turned out to perhaps be a place of profound loneliness and isolation for Tran. Conceivably, ultimately, feelings of self-hate for not fitting in may have developed. Then perhaps he turned the self-hate and self-loathing for not fitting in onto the group itself with which he self-identified, resulting in the California massacre. Could mass shooting then be an act of self-hate? Is mass shooting an expression of a death wish? Most end in suicide anyway, suicide by cop or by the perpetrator himself. In this case, who can Tran took his own life? We are still in the dark as to what motivated Tran to kill 11 of his peers and injure 9 more on that cold winter night in January. But we can make conjectures based on the literature. My conjecture is that people who commit mass murders develop a certain amount of self-hate. How can we prevent this going forward? Well, according to Anton Chekhov, the role of the artist is to ask the questions, not to answer them. This is indivisible, and it has been my turn.